there's something wrong. And Gerry, I didn't get the last question.
The last question, excuse me, was, do the citizens need to heed the fiscal crisis warnings?
Oh, positively. I think we're doing that in our everyday home. I've seen people paying more attention to their paying off their credit cards and more attention to getting along with without the luxuries that we used to have. I think people are starting to become aware of it, and I think in a couple of years, if we just toe the mark, we can come out of this mess.
Thanks, Jim. Jane, you see this from both sides of the street, really, because I'm sure as an editor of the paper, you get it from all angles, and I was wondering what your opinion might be.
Well, I certainly think that we should heed the words of our state officials. She described it as a grave situation, and we've watched just in the past few weeks how the selectmen have had to have several Saturday meetings slashing away at this year's budget. Now, they are also beginning to talk about a $5 million override for the spring ballot. That's a serious situation. I believe that the finance director said for the average valued home of $355,000, that would be about $125 per million. So,
25 bucks.
Yes, it's a lot of money. There are serious problems. I don't think that the selectmen would be talking about such a large sum of money if it weren't a serious situation. And I agree with Jim. If you look to what's going on in the state, well, only a few weeks ago we heard Governor Romney talk about the state of the state, and then he was followed by Senate President Travaglini and Tom Finneran, and both of them pretty much said, well, folks, this is what we're dealing with this year, but you ain't seen nothing yet. It's going to be 5 times as bad next year. So yeah, we've got some problems, and I think as far as should the citizens heed this, because we're talking about such a large sum of money here in the future, we're talking about the high school, the need to ask for more money for 5th Elementary School in the Barrows, sidewalk repairs, and then down the road, yes, of course, an override. I think this becomes very much a very personal situation for each and every family to sit down and think very carefully about their priorities and needs, and weigh it very carefully. We're all in this together, but you've got to make very, very careful choices about what you think needs to be done. And are you willing or able to come up with the money to pay the additional taxes, substantial taxes that will be required to meet the town's needs in the future?
Thanks, Jane. I think that's an important comment. Are you able to pay? Tom, what's your position on this?
You don't want Bill first?
Hey, I like to bounce around.
Okay. All righty. And the question is, should we heed, basically, we are in a financial mess right now. And the question is, well, not how we got there. You know, it's the old joke about if you're up, what an alligator is. Yes, you should have drained the swamp. But the problem is, we are here now. We have grave financial crises facing us. How do we solve them? And yes, should we heed the warnings? I should hope so. We'll get into some of the finances later.
Thanks, Tom. Bill?
Yeah, I think we touched on something the other week, or at least one of the people stated that the reason our debt is going up and the interest is going up because we have not passed overrides. Quite frankly, it's because we do not have a stabilization fund. We had it years ago, and we used it up and didn't put any money aside. I don't recall the town right off my head right off now. Oh, Bedford. They're sitting very pretty. They got a stabilization fund. Wilmington has a stabilization fund. they're not going to be hit as hard as we can. And I think that's,
Well, I think one of the advantages that Wilmington has, and my understanding is from the Wilmington editor who happens to sit next to me, is that they have about $5 million in their stabilization rainy day funds, money that's there to, in case a situation such as today happens. They're not too worried about losing $250,000 in state aid because of that. Not a problem for them. They also have a larger commercial base. Reading, we have, what is it, 90%
92.
residential?
Yes.
That's a problem. And we have just seen the last 2 large tracts of land sold, and they're about to be developed. So we know that we're not going to have many opportunities to expand that commercial base to help us out. So the burden's falling to the taxpayers. What will the taxpayers do? What do they think their priorities are?
you spoke of the last piece of land. We haven't seen a check yet, Jane. And if we don't see a check, we're looking at $4 to $6 million.
Are you
No,
talking
I
about
think
the
Jane.
landfill?
I think Jane, you were talking about what Spence and
I'm talking
the.
about the
I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
the housing developments, right.
The landfill we haven't seen a check for, and if that goes down the tubes, we're looking at $4 to $6 million to cap it, and it will be capped. We have no choice in that matter.
That must be done.
Yeah.
Just to get back on a focus, that's perfectly all right. Tom, I'll direct this one to you. There's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding that I get from citizens about reimbursement from the SBAB. Can you sort of clarify that? I mean, people are saying we're getting more, we're getting less.
How much time do you have?
Wow.
What do you want to start? You want to start with the high school, or you want to start with PEP?
Wherever you want to
Well,
start.
let's start with PEP.
Okay.
And this is my opinion only. I think PEP is supposed to stand for what people educating people, or parents educating.
Right.
I think it should stand for preposterous and people explaining people. Back in January, PEP ran an ad in a local paper. In the bottom of the ad, they showed what was supposedly a replica of a check made out to the town of Reading dated January 2000 for the sum of $11,300,000. That check does not exist. It never did exist. 2 days later, they ran the same thing. I wrote a letter to the Advocate, which was published, thanks to Jane, saying that it was yellow journalism. They're trying to scare the people. They have not run that check since then. Every other ad they put in, we have approved state dollars. There is no state fund sitting somewhere in the State House or SBAB that says $11.3 million is sitting there in approved state dollars, committed state funding, earmarked for Reading, existing state funding. Those funds do not exist, okay? These are bald-faced lies. Now, they're talking about $11.3 million reimbursement, which is 66%. 66% of what? I don't know. Every time they put a different figure, I have to figure out what 11.3 million. Oh, by the way, since they don't know about the 11.3 million, the Arabic numerals are wrong. So the Roman numerals, they put down 11.3 M. M is a symbol for 1,000, not a million. If you want to do it right, put a little superior power on top of the M. That means million. Okay, don't. Again, the money does not exist. The funds are not there. As you said, push my mic away. Okay, you're talking too loud. You're talking. Like I said, these funds do not exist. There is no approved. In fact, if somebody can produce that check, a copy of that check, show me on what bank it is drawn, I guarantee you, Sunday morning after church, Bill Brown and I will stand down in front of Town Hall and let people throw snowballs at him. As far as the building pride, how much reimbursement are we going to get? I don't know. I don't think Building Pride knows. One of the flyers said last November we were supposed to get 58.03% reimbursement. Today, in the paper, now we're down to 53% reimbursement. First it was $54 million. Now it's over $50 million. What is the basis? Is it 50 million or is it 45? Building Pride says it's going to cost only 24. I say it's going to cost close to 31. The figures, according to PEP, that's going to cost the average family only $26 a year. In the paper today, a member of the Finance Committee wrote a letter, says it's going to cost $37 a year. Well, what is it? And another Building Pride, it's going to cost $373 per family per year.
So, Jim,
one says
I'm sorry.
$371.
Is it just safe to say there's a lot of confusion about the whole issue?
I'll put the figures on the board and I'll add them up as we go along as to what it's going to cost. There is confusion, yes.
Jerry, as I understand it, we have a capital plan and the money's there. Is that right, Jim? When you guys were on the Finance Committee, didn't we set up a capital plan and put money in the bank for...
Bill, I've been off the Finance Committee for 5 years. I really am out of touch with what's going on there.
Get the phone call, Jim?
It isn't blinking.
Yes, it did blink. Did it? No?
No. Haven't seen it.
See if it did.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
In addition to the current projects on this ballot, we're looking at an operational budget of approximately $5 million for an override or debt exclusion or some issue along those lines. There's also the Killam School project, MWRA buy-in, and what will the overall impact be on the town finances and the taxpayer in terms of how much are they going to have to pay when all these things are put together. I believe we have a call. Good evening, this is the Citizens Forum.
Hi, well, I'm a citizen, and I'd like to make a comment and let you folks explain what that means. Many people are not aware that when the new elementary school was voted on in 2000, that it was unfunded, that there was no money in a pot somewhere that was just waiting to dish out $9.1 million. And it means, what it really means is that the mortgage payments, I like to say, for the new elementary school will come from the town's operating budget. Could you gentlemen explain to people and review from me what that means as far as town finances go and how we would come up with $500,000 to make that mortgage payment on the school, and that also does not include the operating costs to open the doors or the staffing costs as well. So I'll let you folks discuss that.
Okay, thanks for the call. I think what she's asking is the money in the bank? At least that's where I understand. And maybe, Jim, do we have any money in the bank that you're aware of? The town treasurer, at least in her recent article in the paper, said there is no money.
We have an application submitted.
Right.
To my knowledge, and I only can go on what the town treasurer said, no, there's no money sitting any place waiting for us.
Right.
That's it. That's my comment on that.
That's right. Basically what the town treasurer said, and we spoke to her last week, is the way it works is this, is that she will borrow the money, and the payments that we have to make come out of the operating budget. So if she has to borrow $500,000 a year over 20 years to pay this bill, that $500,000 comes out of the operating budget every year. Now, when you're making this new payment of $500,000, something else within that operating budget has to give, unless you have an override to fill in that $500,000 a year gap. That means trimming something else to make that payment. But that, I believe that was something that was explained to the people when they voted for the new school, although there does seem to be some continuing confusion about that. I believe there are citizens who believe that money for the 5th Elementary School and for the Barrows is sitting somewhere in a bank account waiting to be expended, and that's not true. It will be borrowed, and it will come out of the operating budget every year until the loan is paid off.
Jerry, can I jump in on
Sure,
that one?
Tom. Bill.
Yeah, that's all right.
He's
I think a lot of people are confused because by town charter, for any project to get on the waiting list, if you will, it's called the capital plan. And then once it gets on the capital plan, it's in there. It doesn't say there's any money for it. So that's where some of the confusion. You can't vote until it's on the plan, and no money can be appropriated unless it is on the plan.
Basically, it's on paper.
It's on paper.
There's no money.
And one thing you didn't mention, Jerry, in the other expenditures coming up, I guess it's probably a little sidetracked because it's an enterprise fund, is the water treatment plant. And I guess that's a little light at the end of the tunnel if there's anything out there. Now, in their ultimate wisdom, Camp Dresser McGee only suggested spending 13.8 to rehab the 1935 building instead of 22.8 to build a new one.
Right.
I told the Public Works Director, we can't have that ready. We have to spend money.
Tom, the discussion about a $5 million override, perhaps in April and spring for the general operating budgets, represents $625 per year on the average home, as I understand it. Is that going to be in addition to any monies that may or may not be appropriated for the schools?
Do you want a quick rundown of what the projected cost per year of all these projects are? We just happen to have it right here.
Okay, sure.
Were you a Girl Scout? Got to turn the pencil on there. Yeah, you brought a wrong one. Take a black one.
I was going to use the red because we are in the red, but this is the cost per year. Question number 2. Here is where some of the confusion is. According to PEP, the cost per year per family is $26. Remember the Finance Committee in the paper today said the cost per family is
37.
37. A little bit of a difference there. Don't forget the roads that are coming on the ballot in April for cost per court. Now, these are not my figures. This is TEP's figure. This is a FinCom member's figure. According to the town manager, the cost per family for the roads $85 a year. Oh, let's not forget the enterprise fund, pay-as-you-throw, or I like to call it trash fee. It's only $54 a family. How about an override to the tune, like Jane just pointed out, $5 million? That comes out to 125 per minute, $625 per family per year.
For the average house count.
The average $355,000. And by the way, somebody said at town meeting, well, there's no such house in there. Yes, it's actually one on Forest Street, exactly 355. How about the high school? Who knows? Some figures will round it off to 373. That's average per household. Depending on whether you get 53%, 58%, depending on what basis they use. Right now, who knows? Jerry, is this confusing enough? Do you want me to go on? You're talking, I think it comes to $1,163 over and above what you're paying now if you got the average homeowner.
So that's a bottom line of $1,100.
Okay, we haven't stopped yet. Your average assessment is $4,078.95. This amounts to $1,163. Add that to your 4,078, you're talking 5,200. I won't add up the figures. Basically, without any interest that we don't know about, you're talking roughly a 29% increase in your taxes every year for the next 25 years. So if you're paying $4,078.95 now, next year you'll be paying $5,241.
Now, Tom, is that considering that the $355,000 average house stays at that same value? In other words, that's for the house, not for the family.
Yeah,
so as your house increases in value, that number could increase too.
Of course it will increase. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, Jane, because this latest video that Building Pride says we have a teacher saying, oh my God, the place is falling down and the property values will decrease. Oh my God, it's terrible. 3 years ago, if you didn't vote for the override, property values are going to drop $40,000. They went up $40,000. 01, the average assessment was $280. 02, it was $320. This year is $355. Property values aren't going down already. They are going up, whether you pass the overrides or not. This adds to the confusion. So if you want a 29% increase in your taxes, vote for all these budgets. Oh, I forgot. Every year we have a 2.5% increase automatically under Prop 2.5. Oh, that adds only another. Just another $117. That's pennies a day. Confused enough, Jerry?
Thanks, Tom. Jim, maybe I'll let you start with this one. Why do you feel the debt exclusion for the roads and the CPA failed?
Jerry, I don't think that the public is ready to increase their expenditures. They're working the opposite. People are spending less. People are buying used cars. People are deferring buying automobiles. And while we're on that subject, I think the intelligent way to approach this whole fiasco that we all got ourselves into, I mean, this wasn't brought on by any one group of people or any one person. This is deficit spending. And deficit spending, while I was on the Finance Committee, took place. As chair of the Finance Committee, we indulged in deficit spending. At that point, to answer your question, Bill, I had just finished 5 years as chairman of the Capital Improvement Committee, and every year I saw our amount of money dedicated to capital decreasing. If I had my way, I would approach this, and Mr. Romney stole my line. I would have a moratorium on all capital projects, and I would address the operating budget. If we don't address that operating budget by means of an override, if necessary, 5 million, whatever is necessary, we have to start on the ground floor. The ground floor is your operating budget. And it needs to be addressed before we go out and buy any luxuries or any other expenditures. We have a lot of employees which we really can't do without. Public safety. I hate to see even institutions such as the library have to cut back. We have to address that operating budget by means of an override. Once we get that operating budget solid, where we can exist with a level funded budget, then we can start talking about extracurricular projects or capital projects.
Thank you, Jim. I think we have another call. Good evening. This is Citizens Forum.
Good evening. My question for the panel this evening is as follows. Over the past few years, School Building Assistance Bureau of the state and the Department of Education, over the last few years, they've been funding about 20 new schools annually, or new school projects annually. That's the rate at which they've been being added to the waiting list. If the SBA reimbursement list has approximately 300 schools on it already, on the waiting list, given the current financial condition of the state, it sounds as though we would be waiting for some let me see, it'd be about 15 years or longer before we would receive any financial aid from the state for the high school project, should it be approved. In the opinion of you panelists, what are your best financial estimates for the added tax burden on the average home in Reading should we go forward with the high school project as proposed, realizing that there's no realistic hope for any state aid for at least 15 years, and I think that's a conservative estimate, given the fact that there's no guarantee SBA will begin resuming reimbursement in the near future.
All right, we'll try to address that. I think Tom did give a number, but thanks for the call, and he'll repeat it.
Thank you.
Double the 373 if we don't get reimbursement.
Thanks, Tom.
Simple. Great.
And just add to that, like the gentleman said, when will we get reimbursement? You notice the state, the SBAB has pushed up bans from 5 to 7 years. Supposedly we'll get reimbursement starting in year 8. Somebody in the SBAB, I think in the Globe the other day, said you'd be lucky if you get everything paid up in 17 years. That's when we might get reimbursement. Nothing. The only thing guaranteed on here are the approximate, the cost, not reimbursement. Okay.
Jane, do you think the town, or many towns and cities, are in a position to move forward with projects they have on the table with the current situation of state reimbursement and state aid and Chapter 70 monies and any other monies they provide us with?
Well, my office consists of 19 editors from surrounding cities and towns. We're called the Northwest Unit. That's Wilmington, Chelmsford, Arlington, Lexington, Acton, a whole very large group of papers. There are only a few of us that are dealing with a school building issue right now. I can tell you, for instance, Arlington just took a $12 million elementary school off the table. I can tell you that last week when school building assistants announced a moratorium, the Chelmsford editor spoke with his town manager, and they were trying to decide whether or not to yank their school building application because they were very worried about whether or not funding's going to come through. Now, the reality of the situation is this. There is so much unknown. We only know what Commissioner Driscoll has told us so far this week, and that is that there is a moratorium on new applications, that they plan on sitting on those applications at least until the beginning of fiscal '04, when they will again start looking at them and looking at their financial situation. Now, Senator Tassay, as you may have heard, helped to spearhead an amendment which was attached to a supplemental budget. It's going before a conference committee tomorrow. Hopefully, if this happens, the Reading High School can be put back on the priority list. What does that really mean? Well, it means that we're pretty much in the same place that we were 11 days ago before the commissioner came out with his moratorium, and that is that we would be placed on the priority funding list. But this issue still needs to be voted on by the Reading citizens on Tuesday. Reading citizens have to decide whether or not they're going to pay a debt exclusion for their share of Reading Memorial High School. Having said that, we still do not know when reimbursement will come for this school, if at all, because the other part of Commissioner Driscoll's letter clearly states that he believes in the current fiscal climate that few, if any, new grants would be allowed in the coming years.
Thanks,
So that's
Jane.
a problem. It's as I have said before, though, I think I want to emphasize that I think this is why people need to think very seriously about their priorities and what they believe is right for their families in the town.
Thank you. Good evening. This is Citizens Forum.
Yes, I have a question about the high school reimbursement. It's supposed to be about 58%. What if the question passes on the ballot and then the state reduces the reimbursement amount? Who would pay the difference?
Thank you. We'll answer that.
All right, thank you.
We have to pay 100%.
You will. Everyone will. As I stated before, back in November, we started with 58.03% reimbursement. The town of Reading has a basis of 53.11%, to which they add so many points for this, that, and the other thing. Now, according to Building Pride, we're down to 54%. That's 54% of what? If the state doesn't reimburse it, everyone will bear it. Like I said, double the figure.
Bill?
Right.
Gary? Yeah, when Mr. Bowen was going over the figures for this, I think very early on, he stated that all of the 53 million would not meet their requirements, and we would have to pay, I think at that time he said roughly 3 million we'd have to carry anyways.
Right, we were over the square footage allowance.
Yeah,
for
whatever
the
the
project.
parameters are. The other thing too, and Jane mentioned Chelmsford, they were attempting even to stop their election, not only withdrew the application, but they wanted to stop the election altogether. Unfortunately, Reading has committed, and I don't think we can do that, nor should we.
Okay.
Well, I think it at this point, even though there are many unknowns, we have come so far in this that the voters are ready to be heard.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely, they have a right to be.
Sure.
Jim, we've received a notice of a cut in state aid for this particular period in time, and the governor's going to release his new fiscal budget tomorrow. And he stated that likely more cuts will be made in local aid. With all those unknowns, should we be concerned?
With all my observations and all my communications that I've been receiving through the media, Mr. Romney, or Governor Romney, is determined to bring us back to financial stability, or should I say financial sanity. I think you're going to see drastic cuts in 04, 05, and maybe we can start to come back to normality in 08.
Thank you, Jim. We have another call. Good evening. This is Citizens Forum.
Yes, good evening. Could you explain on the elementary project? I keep seeing a lot of literature that says that reimbursement, it's on the waiting list as project number 62. Yet there's also a list of some 46 projects on a desegregation list that are also in front of that project. Can you explain why it's only at 62 when there's an additional 46 projects on a separate list with the state? And secondly, town meeting never voted override money for the elementary schools. So as soon as there's costs in the town, does that mean that the town budgets are going to have to be further cut back in order to pay the costs for those? I think that needs to be cleared up. Thank you.
Okay. Jane?
Well, let me just explain. School building assistance is rather a complicated animal. They do have a website that you can go and take a look at it, and they've got lots of documents posted there for you to read. And I encourage people to really explore that website carefully. They have posted lots of notes from the commissioner. They have their priority waiting list there. They have a very detailed explanation of what school building assistance is all about in its regulations. Your question is about why the school is listed at number 62 when there are 46 other projects ahead of it. There are 3 waiting lists. There is List A, List B, and List C. Now, List A does contain 46 desegregation projects. Those are considered high priority. They receive 99% reimbursement from the state. What we saw last year, for instance, was 4 projects taken from waiting list A. We saw, I believe it was 14 taken from waiting list B, and that is where the Barrows and the Sunset Rock schools sit, waiting list B. And then there is new waiting list C. Now, C was created at the beginning of this past fiscal year, last July 1. What school building assistants said was, okay, folks, as of June 30th of this year, everybody who's on our priority waiting list, A and B, you're there. We're starting this whole new list C. List C is low priority. And what they're trying to do is pretty much what Driscoll has again reaffirmed in the past week, trying to take the projects they were already committed to that were sitting way ahead on A and B and move those forward a little more quickly. Anybody else who came along was going on list C. The other thing SBA used to do, I believe, was every year they used to go in and reprioritize people so you could move up and down in rank there. So if you were number 50
at
one
the
year.
discretion of the commission.
Yeah, yeah. And they don't do that anymore. Once you're number 60, whatever on the list, that's where you are until you move up. This past year, what you saw, again, was 4 projects taken off A, funded, 14 taken from B, and only 2 from List C. Now, List C is where Reading Memorial High School will go. There's about 100 projects sitting there. We're going down near the bottom of List C, no matter what happens. 2 projects from List C, I believe they totaled $32,000. Things are moving along pretty slowly, folks. Also, if you look at the past couple of years, the SBA's been funding 20 projects. They have about $20 million. That means $1 million per project. That's been the last couple of years' trend. If you look at the SBA website, you see their budget proposal for fiscal 04. They have again asked for only $20 million. So you can see where the list is moving along very slowly there. So when Commissioner Driscoll is talking about a moratorium, his concern is that things are not moving along too quickly, and in fairness to other towns out there who are considering school building projects, perhaps he's sending a message like, you might want to hold up things for a while until we clear this matter all up and see if we can get some more funds. He also clearly spoke to, in his memorandum, the fact that he suspects Governor Romney is going to come in and reorganize SBA, hopefully for the better. Who knows?
May I just add something,
Sure.
Jerry? The excuse me, the gentleman that just called said something to the effect that town meeting did not vote any override money. The town meeting excuse me, can only vote money, as I believe, up to the levy limit, which is $32 million right now. They can make a motion to the effect that we suggest the selectmen put an override on the balance. So, like I said, the levy limit right now is $32 million, and it goes up 2.5% each year. This year, fiscal 03, it went up 700 plus thousand plus new growth of about 205,000, with a total of 992,000 over last year, which is in the coffers this year, which represents about a 3.15% increase. But no, the voters have to vote for the override.
Correct.
But the town meeting cannot vote the override money.
Jerry?
Yeah, Bill.
Jump in. Something was said about the new school. I think people have to understand that the $2.5 million asked for the Sunset Rock School is not due to any of the litigation. The school came in over budget to begin with, and because he has extra square footage on that building that does not meet the requirements of SBAB. The Barrow School, I understand, is being brought in on budget. However, I understand also that we're going to have 3 less classrooms, so I guess you can compare it. If I go up to the grocery store, I have a bin label that tells me whether I buy a 13-ounce can of coffee or a 10-ounce, it's per pound. So I hope to get another phone call here.
I believe we have.
Yeah.
Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I got a question. Why haven't, with the local aid being cut and slashed as they predict, why haven't we in the past let the people decide what they want as far as X amount of dollars for DPW, police, fire, and so forth? And that's the question that I have. Thank you.
Okay, we'll try to answer that. I believe he's talking about a menu. Is that what you take it to mean, Jim?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Can I jump in on that one, Jerry?
Well, unless Jim has any more to say about it, I mean.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Well, let's go back to, see, my original thoughts are, before we jump into any other capital projects or any other overrides, let's square away the operating budget. And until we have an operating budget that will carry the everyday expenses of this town,
correct,
without expansion, we can't go anyplace. I mean, we're jumping the gun. We're putting the horse before the cart before the horse. We're putting the cart before the horse here. We're trying to build fire stations, schools, libraries, roads. And where are we getting the funds? We're pulling it out of the operating budget. So in the long run, what happens? The everyday services keep dwindling and dwindling.
Sure.
As I said, when I first got onto the capital plan, we had anticipated 6.5% of the budget every year for capital.
Right.
Well, my last year on FinCom, we were down about 4%. Why? First of all, we paid for everything right out of the budget.
Right.
If we wanted in them days, we should have went for debt exclusions or capital overrides. But no, everything came out of the operating budget. Now the operating budget, we have $3 million there just for debt.
Sure.
And that's my statement on that, Bill. You can take it from there.
Could I toss in something before Bill gets to
sure.
thing?
I'd hit you,
The
but
gentleman said that why don't the people vote? Town meeting has the power to vote all $32 million and give it to the superintendent if they want
Right.
a pay raise or help them go out of town, something like that. Excuse me, Bill.
But I think he was referring to a menu.
Yes, he
on
was,
the ballot.
Jerry. Yeah.
Is that how you took it, Bill?
Yeah, that's how I took it, Jerry. And you can indeed vote a menu override. In fact, I brought with me tonight called Proposition 2.5 ballot questions that describes a menu override. You can indeed say, okay, we want to fund 3 firemen, we want to do this. But the problem with it, it only lasts that 1 year. The next year it gets added to the pot, and it can be divided any way they want to. So
it's a one-shot deal.
It's a one-shot
But it can
deal.
be done.
It can be done, absolutely. But with the peril that when it goes to town meeting next year, they can spend it
Right.
like Tom said, any way
Yeah,
they
but
want.
are you saying, Bill, that if we vote, say, $300,000 for fire personnel this year,
Yep.
next year, that $300,000 goes into the general funds, and it can be spent anywhere?
Absolutely,
Not
absolutely.
necessarily on the 3 fire.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there's some inherent risk in that.
Yes, absolutely. And you can also, there's another one called a pyramid override.
Right.
In other words, you could vote a series of them, and the largest amount prevails.
We're going to be taking a break in a few minutes. Maybe we can get to 2 more questions then. There has been discussion of a pay-as-you-throw, and I think we've heard that many times. It's been bounced all over the ballpark. And I think certainly if they're looking at that, it's going to be a cost to the taxpayers, and I wonder if anybody has a general idea, or actually it'll be a cost to the town, which will ripple down to the taxpayer.
Yeah. Can I jump in on that?
Go ahead.
Sure. The Board of Selectmen at their February 13th meeting by the Public Works Director for half a year is $228,000.
Okay.
So £556 for a full year? Using-
$456.
Yeah,
$456.
okay. That's not using Chicago math, that's using plain old-fashioned math.
That's the cost of the town.
54 bucks.
That's the cost of the town.
54 bucks
Now
per
that,
household.
now also understand that municipal trash has to be picked up out of the regular trash route, so you're not saving any money there.
May I just toss in something
Yeah.
there? Back in writing. The only override that ever passed, when was that, Bill? What, 1992 or something like that?
Yeah, right, somewhere around there, yeah,
It
Tom.
was passed because we were paying for the trash fee at the time, and they said they would eliminate the trash fee. We would never, ever impose the trash fee again. Of course, no one body in town can bind a further body. But last week, the Board of Selectmen voted 5-0 to institute a pay-as-you-throw program.
And can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Jim, sure.
That's true. I believe it was 92 or 91, in that ballpark. And we went for a $2.5 million override, of which we were going to give $1.25 million back to the taxpayer by eliminating a trash fee. Okay, that's well over 10 years ago. My feeling on that, again, we have to get financially stable here. And if it incurs instituting a pay-as-you-throw trash fee, that's one way of accomplishing this. Am I advocating it? No, I think it's a wonderful suggestion that we are finding alternatives to bring in additional revenue.
Sure. Sure.
Jerry, can I jump in on that one too?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, didn't mean to. I think Tom brought up a very interesting point that no one body is, present board is bound to a board-made previous vote. The vote on the school committee at the same meeting, I think, the other night that I was there, February 13th, a member of the present school committee stated that they would not go forward with the school project if there was no funding. Well, we heard the same thing from the Board of Selectmen a number of years ago, that they would not revisit the thing. So you can't trust.
No, it's a question of
Yeah.
that was then and this
Yeah.
is now.
Yeah.
And times have changed,
Yeah.
so certainly you have to...
Absolutely.
Jerry, it's supposed to be neutral here.
I'm neutral. Jane, I know you don't want to get into our trash fee, do you?
Not really.
Okay. Well,
And Frank will reject
we'll
one
jump
too.
ahead then. I think Jim touched on it and mentioned, for example, we built the police station out of our operating budget. We built the fire station out of the operating budget. And certainly, do you feel that we should have bonded those?
Yes, but we didn't. So the point is, this is here. This is
Yeah.
now, okay.
No.
The alligators are not up to,
Right.
they're up to here, okay. We can't say, well, we should have done
Yeah.
this, we should,
Well,
but we didn't.
I think
Right.
the correct one should have been exclusion, not bonded.
Well-
We did in fact bond them, an exclusion. Yeah, and I would have gone along with it. And
Jerry and I were both on the finance committee at the time, and it's wonderful to be able to be a Monday morning quarterback.
Absolutely.
And at the time, I went along with it. I mean, you know, I have to sit here and say that I've been involved in Reading Town government now for 13, going on 14 years.
You're an amateur.
And I want to assume some of the responsibility here. I mean, we learn as we go along.
How long have you been involved in town politics, Bill?
1967.
I asked you how long. I
Too
don't
long.
wanna-
Too long.
How about, what, 30 years, something like that? Jerry, go ahead.
Just before we break, here's a question that, you know, we hear people say, well, we shouldn't have built a fire station, police station. Why did we build a new fire station?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. We replaced an 1883 building. It was 107 years old when we built the new fire station.
We didn't maintain
No,
it
that-
properly, though, Bill, is that correct?
Well, no, I guess we didn't. We couldn't put any more horses in it because...
Just know the horses.
Yeah. No,
Is there a reason they didn't renovate it?
it was just structurally unsound. Matter of fact, when we bought our new ladder truck in 1940, they had to put an extension on the building that time to get the aerial ladder, and that was only 65 feet. So,
What was the cost of this on the station?
right off the top of my head, I can't tell you, Jane, but I did serve in the committee.
Yeah, but the floors wouldn't hold the new fire
No,
truck, so we
the
built the whole
plus-
horses,
plus-
not
and-
trucks.
At that time, we were housing the ladder truck on the west side, so it didn't make sense to have your biggest piece of equipment on the west side of town. So that's basically, and I went back the other day, Jerry, on that too, And most every building that we have either replaced or renovated were well over 65 years. And our newest school building is 1949. I mean, our oldest school building, which is the Joshua Eaton. So certainly we have not neglected our schools.
Tom, this is an easy one, and then we will break. Can we use money from the landfill when we get it?
For what?
No.
For anything?
No. It has to go into an escrow account and can be used for, I think it's a capital projects and something else, but
Pension fund.
pension funds.
Pension
But you
fund.
can't say, okay, we're going to get
And
three.
debt.
Yeah.
And debt. You can't say we're going to take $3 million and give it to the schools. No, you can't do that.
So it's
By law.
it's specific as to what they can use it for, so it's really not available funds to
You said that was an easy one. yeah.
disperse. Well, it's,
But I think it has to stay in that escrow account for a number of years
About 4 or
because
5 years, I think.
EPA says, even though we have a letter from,
I don't believe that's true.
what?
I don't think it has to go in an escrow for any amount of time.
Well, yeah, it has to go in the escrow, yes. I
It
don't
can-
know the number of
It
years.
can
but
be
it has-
used for debt, unfunded pension, or any capital
Yeah,
project.
but right now, the
starting
EPA's,
What's that?
Starting when? We don't know.
the
Well,
EPA is,
as soon as the money was in the bank.
EPA has said we have to have a fund in case there's environmental problems with that. We have to fund it. Not Home Depot,
Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute now. You're on two different subjects here.
no, landfill.
well, yeah, but I think the clarification here is that
He's on two different subjects. I'm not talking about just the
we're not
landfill.
talking about capping.
Oh, good, a fight. Let's go, guys.
Time is almost up. You better not get into it now. I think at this point we will take a break, and this is a live show from Citizens Forum, and you're welcome to call in, and the number is 781-944-8888. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back.
My name is Joseph, and this is my Pinewood Derby car. My name is Nathan, and this is my Pinewood Derby car. My name is Craig, and this is my Pinewood Derby car. My name is Thomas, and this is my Pinewood Derby car. My name is William, and this is my Pinewood Derby car. My name is Connor, and this is my Pinewood Derby car. We are Tigers, Cubs, and Four, and you are watching RCTV. Hello, my name is Jacob. Hello, my name is Owen. Hello, my name is Patrick. Hello, my name is Danny. Hello, my name is Daniel. Hello, my name is Noel. The Tigers and Four. Who? We're knocking at your door. Who? You're gonna hear us roar. The Tigers and Four. Who? We're not supposed to say anything. Hello, my name is Christopher. Hello, my name is Curtis. Hello, my name is Alex. Hello, my name is Jonathan. Hello, my name is Jeff. Hello, my name is Brendan. Hello, my name is Nathaniel. And we're Bear Cubs from 10, 12, and 13. And you're watching RCTV.
feel free to call in at 781-944-8888.
I think you have a call.
No,
Just flash the mic.
that's to let us know we're back on the air, yeah.
The next question is, can you defer your taxes? Can you defer them, Jim?
I'm going to leave that to the expert across the
Expert,
table.
huh?
Yes, you can.
Am I glad you asked? In the assessor's office, there is, that's from the Secretary of State, and it's called a tax savings tip number 3, and it's called elderly tax deferral.
Now, who puts that out, Tom?
What's Secretary of the State of the Commonwealth, okay?
What's he know?
Secretary of State of the Commonwealth. And yes, the elderly can refer taxes. It's called Clause 41A. And without going through things, basically what it amounts to, you have to meet certain criteria. You have to be over 65. You have to have occupied real estate in Massachusetts for 5 years. You have to live within the state for 5 years. You have a certain amount of income, can't be more than 40, 20, some towns have upped it up to 40. And basically what it means is that, let's say the average tax is $4,000. Okay, you can defer that until you sell your house or until you pass away. And in the meantime, what you agree to is that the town puts a lien on your property, and we charge you 8% per year interest. So you defer your taxes, you pay your taxes of $4,000 a year. We defer that $4,000 and charge you 8% of that, which is $320 a year. Okay. Now,
And you put a lien on my house and I don't own it.
that is the big thing. No, it's, you put.
I own it, but
No, we put a lien on it.
Put a
All
lien
that
on it.
means, basically, you know, when you buy an automobile, the title says first lien owner, second lien owner. So basically, it's like I said, when you move, sell it, pass away, the town says, okay, we want our money back plus the 8%. Now, elderly tax deferrals. In Reading, we have some interesting demographics. The median age in Reading is 39 years old. We have something like 37% of the population in Reading is over 62. About 23% of the population is 65 and older. So break that down to roughly 2,000 people. Let's say you got 1,000 homeowners. How many deferrals, tax deferrals, do you think we have in the course of a year? Anyone want to guess?
100?
Less than a dozen. In fact, last year I think we had 8. And this is just my opinion, but you say, well, why don't more people defer? You go back 65, 70 years. When were these people born? During the Great Depression. Their families were out of work. They were on welfare. They know someone that lost their home. They lost their business and so forth. The minute you mention lien, they run out the door. You're not going to take my house. So like I say, you have only 8. Yes, they may defer, but very few people take advantage of that.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, the tax is still due. It's just deferred. In other words, you don't eliminate the tax.
Right.
You just don't pay it now. You pay it 10 years from now, whatever.
Sure.
Plus interest. Oh, by the way, if you have made no provision to transfer the house to your spouse while you're being waked, the interest rate goes up to 16% the next day per year.
The selectmen are working on establishing a budget with the town manager right now. Once it's established, if an emergency arises of some major proportion in town, how do we pay for it if we've only budgeted a given amount?
Well, you're looking at me.
How do we
I'm
pay for
looking
it?
for an answer.
Well, the last time we had a large emergency was when the then Highland School, now public library, burned. We had to go to town meeting and have a special town meeting. And at that time, we didn't have Proposition 2.5, so we could immediately appropriate the money out of the tax rate. Right now, you'd have to go out and get an exclusion, unless the interest, and the insurance only comes back afterwards. So you got to raise the money in the first place.
Right.
And then hopefully the insurance comes back to you. So
In other words, you need, let's say you have a $2 million emergency, the town hall burns down or something like that, or you have to come up with $2 million. You can't put it in the capital plan and say, well, we'll take care of it 10 years from now. It's got to be done right now.
That's right.
So you have a capital exclusion of $2 million, which has to be done within the year in which you appropriate that money, so that $2 million is added to your taxes for this year.
Jim, I think I'll put this one to you, and if there's a no vote on the two ballot questions that are on the current ballot, does the town automatically get dropped from the list at SPAB because the vote comes out as a no?
Well, not if you have an application submitted.
Right.
Not at all. In reference to the high school, if this is what you're getting at, we don't have an application in yet.
Right.
Mr. Driscoll seems very determined to hold this moratorium until we can again gain some financial stability in the state budget. When they're talking about selling skating rinks and golf courses, when we're going to sell off state property to bring in money to help pay the state debt and meet the state budget, I can't envision myself any new capital projects being reimbursed to a town by the state. Now, I want to bring out another very interesting little thing here. When we went and established a state lottery, and I remember this because I was outspoken, I didn't think, and I still don't think, we should run our budget by gaming. When that was finally passed and the state and the people of Massachusetts decided to allow gaming to pay for the state budget, we were never to see hard times again. And for quite a few years, we had great surpluses. And what bothers me is when we had the great surpluses, what did we do with it? We didn't stop and pay off debt. In other words, if you mortgage your house and your vehicle and a few appliances and you get a windfall, you don't go out and just spend it on a big elaborate vacation or decide to buy a summer home. If you have anything upstairs in here, you start paying off your debt. Well, this did not happen. And the federal government did the same thing. I can't blame anyone but the citizenry of the United States of America for sitting back when we can go to an election and get 12 or 14% of the people come out and vote. There's the responsibility. It's on all of our heads. We have to, I don't think for 1 minute you're going to see SBAB come back as it was, and I don't think you're going to see them accept any new schools or any new applications for at least 2 years. That's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. We have a call. Good evening. This is Citizens Forum.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Citizens Forum.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hello?
I think you're breaking up. Are you on a cell phone?
Yes.
Well, you're breaking up.
Sorry.
Well, that battery went dead.
Jim?
Could I just toss in
Sure.
something?
You
that
always
mentioned?
want to toss it.
The question was, what will happen if the things are voted down? Now, here again is where I accuse PEP. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm just saying that they are telling things which are not true. We will not be dropped from the list. Okay? That is, they say, oh, if we don't vote for this, we'll be dropped from the list. That is not true.
We're not on the list.
I'm talking about the elementary
The
school.
elementary.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
They said, oh, we'll be dropped from the list. That is not true. Is that right, Jim?
That's right. We have an application
We will
which
not
has
be
been
dropped from the
accepted.
list.
We will not be dropped from that list.
Exact. So, in other words, they are saying that which is not
Can I-
true.
Yeah. Could I jump in on what Jim was saying about the state selling off assets?
Property?
The town is sitting on property. We have $1 million worth of property across from the high school. Should we be asking the taxpayers to shell money out of the pocket when we have that land that could be sold?
Sell it to a casino, isn't it?
Yeah, you go.
I think we have another call. Guess not.
Okay. And also, the sales tax was supposed to reduce our tax, too.
Right.
Matter of fact, you're still paying a tax on telephone that was put in to finance the Spanish-American War.
I believe Jim hit on this earlier, and I'm not too sure, but I'll repeat a question here. Or maybe I should wait and take that phone call, because it might be the man on the cell phone.
The man from La Mancha.
I know it. He's gone to a phone.
I'd like to get Jane's thoughts on this.
On the SBAB, if we're,
Right.
would we be dropped off? Go ahead, Jane.
Not clear to me.
Not clear to you.
I don't know that
Okay.
much about what happens, how long you can sit on the list. When our number comes
No,
up.
Jim said the other day that if you have the application in, you have so many years before, unless you act on it, it goes. But once the application is in, they will not be dropped, right?
Oh.
The elementary. Okay.
No.
Well, go ahead.
There it is.
Yeah, but there's no-
He's still struggling. Will we be paying $3,800,000 in the budget for debt next year?
Yes. Very, very definitely. It's $3,856,200. And again, that comes from the Peter's presentation, February 13th to this. And go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Hi, good evening. You're all sitting there talking about whether we'll get removed from a list or not. I think I have some information that might be helpful. Last year, when there was a town meeting warrant article on rescinding the debt for the new school, in other words, not continuing to fund it, someone in town, I happen to have a copy of an email, had requested the same thing of Jeffrey Woolston, who's the financial operating officer of the DOE, also sent to a copy of Christine Lynch. And I'm looking at the email right now. It's dated Wednesday, April 24th, 2002, and it says SBA funding inquiry.
And I just don't want to get into a long discussion.
Right. Basically, it just says projects on the waiting list are subject to review if there are any material changes. However, a project would never be automatically removed from the list.
That's correct.
Such a decision would be made by the commissioner only after careful consideration of all relevant facts.
Right. I appreciate that very much.
Okay.
By the way, a little quick bit. Somebody said, well, what will happen if, we don't pass either of these questions, question 1, question 2, and so forth? Is there a mechanism by which people could voluntarily contribute to the funds? Yes, there is. We could set up a fund which allows the people to contribute to a scholarship fund, education fund, and funds for the elderly and the disabled. We could mail it out with the real estate taxes, and the people could, building prices, they have 4,500 votes. Well, if all those 4,500 people, if it doesn't pass Tuesday, they could come up with $1,000 each, mark it for the education fund, and give it to the superintendent, and there's $4.5 million right there. So there is a mechanism, even if it goes down to defeat, by which they voluntarily can contribute all of their money rather than all of everyone else's.
Jim, I believe this really is your trick question, not a trick one. I know you were instrumental in organizing the capital project program back when you were on the finance committee. And a lot of people think because there's a list of capital projects with dollar signs attached that we have the money. Do we have the money?
No, that was not true. What we did is we designated certain projects for certain years. And when that project started, so much a year would be allotted toward that capital project. We might have it to be paid off over 10 years. And so much, depending upon what the expense was, we would pay it off out of the budget, the capital budget, during that 10-year period, or whatever years designated. Again, we started off with 6.5% of the budget. We could not allocate any more than that towards capital. In fact, we found ourselves dwindling down.
So it's really on paper. There's no money.
There's no money there. No, it's like myself right now. I'm retired and living on pensions. Well, I don't have all that money. I mean, I have a monthly allotment. I can't spend this July's money because I don't have it.
Right.
Even though on July I have so much allotted for painting my house, I don't have that money.
Jerry?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You spoke about the $3.8 million that's coming up this year, $3.8 million. At $125 per million, that's $475 per house for the average house right there in debt that we're carrying.
In debt we're carrying.
That's right. That we're presently carrying. Debt and capital. So
If all the projects that we've mentioned in general, and those some that we're not even aware of, if they were funded, does anybody have an idea of what a projected tax increase would have on the average taxpayer?
Well, Tom just gave us that earlier,
Well,
which was something like an additional $1,300, was it?
$1163.
$1163.
$11.63 on top of what you're paying now.
But
Right.
You did not include the 2.5.
Oh no,
no,
I'm sorry.
that's what I was getting, when you throw that in.
I'll just add another $117. It's pennies
Yeah.
a day. It's a dollar here and a dollar there. You know, what did I say? 117.
Jerry.
Yes.
Okay, so
Brings it over 30% increase in your taxes. If you want to vote to increase your taxes by 30%, vote for all these projects and go for broke.
what's the town's levy limit, Tom? Can we vote?
Levy limit right now is $32 million.
How about how
The
much?
levy ceiling.
Ceiling? Yes, I'm sorry.
Levy ceiling is about,
think we're
I
here.
think we're over 70 million right now. The people say, oh, property values will go down. Last couple of years, the total assessment across the town went from under $2 billion to $2.8 billion. Take 2.5% of that comes down to about $70 million. That's the levy ceiling. Our levy limit is about 32. So if you want to go for both, let's have a $38 million override.
Okay, we have another call. Good evening, this is Citizens Forum.
Good evening, everybody. I had an interesting thought here that no one has talked about, the high school. We're supposed to be finding out this month whether the option that was selected is approved by SBA. I don't know if anyone on the panel has heard whether we've gotten word, or anybody on the school department has been contacted, but we have to have an approved option first. So we're basically going to the voters without the approved option, which even further complicates it because they could say, no, this option is not acceptable. You need to go back to the drawing board and come up with another option.
I think we have an answer for you if you want to let us take a shot at it.
Sure, and then I just had one other thing I wanted to follow up on. You want me to hold on the line?
No, give us the other one, and then we'll...
Okay, the PEP flyer that's been going out, they are basically talking about the $7.4 million in state reimbursement. When the project was put on the list in 2000, when the Board of Ed voted on it at their meeting in July 25th, 2000, the new school actual cost, because they include the interest for the 20 years, was $16 million for, and for the Barrow School, it was $12 million 8. So the total approved cost for both projects was $29.3 million.
What's the
People are
question?
not aware that the interest is included in.
We have another call, but we want to answer your question, so...
Okay,
we'll
but
get
that's
you-
where the actual cost to Reading is around $11 million, not the 7.4, because they are not including
We'll
the
get you.
interest.
We'll get you your answer.
Okay.
Jane?
Her first question talked about option 3, and has anybody heard about that? There was a December 1 deadline for the for anyone who wanted to be added to the priority waiting list. Flansburgh met that deadline, submitted our school project. We were supposed to hear on or before February 1 whether or not that option was acceptable and whether or not the high school would go on to the priority waiting list. We didn't hear. What we heard instead February 11th was that the commissioner was putting a moratorium on that application and every other application submitted on or before December 1. There were 62 communities, I guess, that were waiting to hear February 1, and everybody is now in a holding pattern unless what the amendment that Senator Tassay has submitted is approved by the House and Governor Romney signs it, then we'll go on the priority waiting list. We still need to vote on this on Tuesday. The taxpayers still need to give their approval for kicking in the other $24 million.
Okay, thank you. We have another call. Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Hey, good evening. How you guys doing?
Good.
I'm on my exercise bike. I was channel surfing. I don't know if I'm voting yes or no, but is this a vote no forum?
No.
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 Can I ask around the table how you all feel individually? If you're voting yes or no?
We would not answer that question.
I'll tell you how I vote, like I always vote, in secret.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me too. I might bring my dog, but that's about it.
We're not here to endorse.
I'm insulted watching the show, to be perfectly honest with you, as a citizen of Reading.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to let you guys know that. That's it.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Certainly isn't.
Well, that's telling us.
Yes.
I want it to be known that this forum was not set up as an anti-school project.
Right.
What I had in mind here tonight is to bring out the entire financial situation of Reading, which of course is determined by the financial situation of the state and then the financial situation of the federal government. And I don't see any improvement in the near future.
Well, from the press's perspective, we do not support the high school, nor do we not support anything that's going before the voters. And there's a reason for that. I think the taxpayers are smart enough to make up their own mind. My job is only to give you the information, the good, the bad, the all of it. And then you take what you learn and you make a decision. I don't think that we're doing the public any favors by trying to hide some of the downside. And there are a lot of downsides. The fiscal reality is, unless you have not been reading newspapers, watching television, listening to the Senate President, listening to the Speaker of the House or the Governor, then you are, you really need to pay attention to what people are saying. Here is the bottom line. I guess what most of us are saying to you, what are you going to do about this situation? Here it is. You have many serious decisions to make here. Now, either you're going to ante up and help this town out, or you're going to make some pretty serious choices about what you believe are the most important priorities for this town. And maybe some of us around this table feels that the override is the only way to go, that we need to start there and fix problems. I think all of us recognize that the high school is in tough shape and it needs work. However, there are realities, and the realities are that it's going to cost. It's going to cost a lot of money. What do you want to do about it? What's right for you, your family, your community, and what's right for the state? Because there is a sizable amount of money to pay here. Make no mistake, it's inevitable.
Can I just toss in something?
Sure.
For our exercise buff, I'd like to point out that all these figures up here, the $26 is from PEP, the $37, which is a little disagreement, is from a member of the Finance Committee. The other figures that are used for reimbursement are from Building Pride. The roads figures from the town manager.
Right.
Not one of these figures is mine.
Right.
I'm
These
just
figures are
putting
not
figures on
made
the
up.
board.
We did not
They're
pull
not
these
my
out of the
figures.
hat.
Right.
These are all well-documented numbers. and they've been discussed publicly in public meetings, forums, community meetings. These numbers are real numbers. So what do you think is important here? Teachers' jobs, firefighters' jobs, police officers' jobs, the schools. It's not the same world that it was just even 3 years ago, where perhaps these decisions would have been very easy to make. It's
Right.
different now.
Thank you, Jane. We have another call. Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Hi, just a comment to the panel. I want to thank you very much tonight. I've learned a great deal. And to the gentleman who just called on the bike, I think you should keep riding and ride straight out of town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
A little humor.
Nice to have divergent opinions, isn't it? Huh?
That's
Well,
what
you
I
know,
hear.
that's,
We've got
Sure.
diversion of
Hey.
opinions on this
That's
panel
right.
as to the solution.
Have we used $205,000 from the overlay surplus?
Another one, Jerry.
Strange you should ask.
Wait a minute, Tom.
Go
Let me
ahead, sure,
grab this.
go ahead.
Good evening, Citizens Forum.
If you,
Telemarketer.
telemarketer.
Go ahead.
A quick bit on
Yep.
I think, Jim, you mentioned the other day that all of a sudden we had something like $78,000 in free cash, and about a week later it was up to $275. You want to hit the phone there, Jerry? Go ahead.
Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Hi, I'm glad to have the opportunity to listen to the forum tonight. I do have a question. I think it was Jane, I hope I have your name right, that spoke about the options that we have as taxpayers. I've been here in Reading for 25 years. And the question I would ask is, we need options, all right, and we can't afford it all. What's the backup plan that I could look at or at least listen to about maintaining the high school for a time being again? Has anybody planned it out?
Yes.
That's my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, you can look to the architect's own feasibility study where he gives recommendations for what can be done in the meantime to maintain the building. It's quite an extensive list. It's broken out by must do, should do, and, you might consider doing. It's pretty detailed. It includes things like replacing the windows in the school, replacing the field surfaces, starting and going through the heating system and the plumbing.
Absolutely.
Sure.
It's an alternative. It's broken out by different prices there, and it's something that could be considered in the future. That would take time and money too.
Jane? Jerry, can I jump in?
Sure.
A number of years ago, the light department, as part of its public service, went to all the communities and gave them an energy-saving thing. That was one of the first things they talked about. Doors and windows.
Right.
I certainly will have no problems with that. That's where most of your heat is going.
Yeah. I think there's another one. Nope. Didn't wait. Okay.
I would have no problems.
You have 205,000. By the way,
Overlay.
Jane, the options you're mentioning, I think, was it Pep had another flyer out, with a picture of a toilet. I don't know. I think Freud would have a field day with some of these people. They seem to have a fixation on toilets. If the toilet in my house breaks, I fix it. I don't take a picture of it and run to my neighbors with my legs crossed and say, God, I feel flushed, If the toilet is broken, fix it. What's the first thing that the superintendent raids when he wants something? The maintenance fund. He mentioned that at last week's school committee. Well, I'm going to cut the maintenance fund. Okay, I'm going to get back to the 205,000.
From the overlay.
A couple of weeks ago, the free cash is, 78, 80,000. All of a sudden, it's up to about 280,000. Jim said, where'd that money come from? I didn't see this mentioned anywhere, but the Board of Assessors on February 4th voted to transfer $205,000 from the overlay surplus fund to free cash. That's where the $205,000 came from.
Okay. Jim?
what?
On the overlay, that's where the money came from.
Well, I didn't know this.
No,
I
at the
got my
time.
information from the
Right.
town assessor here.
Okay.
I did happen to see in the paper that free cash, of course, being an ex-chair of FinCom, I was interested. I says, gee, 78,000, we never got that low.
Right.
Gee, the next edition, I come out and it's, what happened? But 275, well, we must have got a windfall.
Let me take this next call. Good evening, Citizens Forum. Hello. Hello, hello.
And we love you too.
He slipped off his mic.
Well, you know, it's just great. I want to inject something
Go ahead,
here.
sure.
Sunday morning, our president, Mr. Bush, made a wonderful comment. And it was in reference to all the worldwide demonstrations against his war. And he made a statement which I loved. He said, that's what's wonderful about democracy. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. We have free speech. And this is applying right here. If someone wants to call in and give us a raspberry,
sure.
That's their,
okay.
That's their right and privilege.
Absolutely.
First Amendment. As long as the raspberries on top of a vanilla ice cream, I'll do it.
All right.
Hey, Jerry.
Excuse me.
Sure. Covered all the questions yet?
Oh, no.
All right.
We're working at it, though. We're getting there. Can we afford any additional, knowing what our current budget is right now and considering the reductions that have been made or offered to be made, and the new budget that's coming along, can we afford any new expenditures other than the normal operational?
Well, I think it gets back to my statement, Jerry. Again, this is my opinion. And it's against any capital project that comes down the pike. I don't care if it's for a bicycle path down Pilgrim Road. Believe me, we have to square away our operating budget. Now, the town manager has been trying to educate our citizenry about this. The Board of Selectmen are concerned about our operating budget, and I'm sure the school committee and the superintendent are
Finance
also.
committee is also.
And the finance
very
committee. Thank you,
concerned.
Jane. And no, we have to have a moratorium on all capital expenditures until we get this operating budget to where it will cover our expenses. Like Jane, I'd like you to make a comment on that if I haven't covered it.
Well, again, this comes back to what I've tried to say all along, is that I think there are some tough choices that taxpayers are going to have to make in the near future. You know, just look at what the selectmen have had to do in the last few weeks, meeting on Saturdays, making cuts left and right. This cannot go on. We have to step up to the plate and help out in some way. I think that's inevitable. How much and in what way is going to be a very personal decision based on what you're willing and able to do for your part. I would say that being a homeowner in any town is like being the investor in any company. When you're an investor, you're investing in the town. And that means also making decisions about how you would like to see it operate and what direction you would like it to take. Probably the most important thing that you can do on Tuesday is just go and vote. It doesn't matter really, in the end, if you do anything else, just go and vote. Vote for what you think the town needs in the future, after weighing all the circumstances you know to be true.
Thanks, Jane. Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Hi, I'd just like to applaud all of you for having this program tonight, first off. And then secondly, I'd like to ask a question. I know the town's going to be facing three tough issues in the near future. First, with a special election, with two issues regarding school projects, and the third is a possible override in April. And I think that the town of Reading should really think hard and strong about what's more important here. Is the fact that we need more space and buildings that need to be maintained more of an issue, or is more of an issue retaining and keeping the teachers that run these schools more of an asset to this community? And I think that's something that we need to really strongly think about, because this town cannot certainly afford all three.
Right.
So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that subject.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I jump in?
I'd love to answer, but I'm neutral. Go
Okay,
ahead,
Jerry. I think a perfect case in point is the town of Franklin. They just went through and built 3 new schools down there. All the debt exclusions, wonderful. They can't open them. They can't open one because they had no staff. Quite frankly, I'd rather see the money for the teachers. People think when they hear me around town that I'm anti-school. I have 2 grandchildren in the Reading school system. And I also have one of those, I guess you would call them, special needs children that everybody seems to pick on. And I want what's best for those children. However, I also want to be able to have a fireman show up if that special needs child falls down. Period.
Tom?
I have no problem with paying teachers a good salary. My 3 kids went through the Reading school system, and I'd like to point out that I paid taxes before I had kids in school. I'm paying taxes now that they're out of school. I've been in town about 44 years, and 26 of those years the kids were not in school, and I still pay taxes to support the schools. I'd rather, hey, if you give me a choice between a building and a teacher, I'd pay the teacher. No problem.
Jim?
Well, I've heard quoted that teachers teach and buildings don't. I don't want to sit here and advocate against a new school. I've walked through that high school. Heck, I attended school committee meetings in that building for 3 years. I would love to be able to provide for this town everything we need. But I want to lean on Jane's statement. We've got to set our priorities. And that is what the voters have to do next Tuesday. All I ask is they get out and vote. I don't want to read in the paper on Wednesday morning that 16 or 18% of the populace voted. Just get out and vote. Use that right, use that privilege, and get out there and have your say. This is your town, your school system. Set your priorities.
Thanks. Jane, any follow-up on that, or?
Well, I would just like to say, as a member of the press, if the community decides to vote for the high school, certainly we celebrate with you. And if you say no to the high school, well, then I guess we'll be following the alternative direction you decide to take. I think it's terrible to be in a situation where you might possibly consider choosing between a new school and 60 or 70 teachers that Dr. Haratunian thinks he might have to cut. That's an awful situation to be in. I wouldn't like to see that happen. I mean, there is so much to be proud of about the students in this town. The children are 24th in MCAS rankings. That speaks to a lot of hard work on the part of the kids and the teachers. The teachers have gotten them to that point, and it talks about the administration and the curriculum and the whole direction that the school department has taken the children and the school system into. We don't want to lose any of that. So this is why I keep emphasizing to people that this is such a personal, important vote that you must take, and you must think seriously about your own family situation, what you know is going on in today's fiscal climate, and make that choice that you think is going to work for you and is in the best interest of the town.
Thanks, Jane. Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Well, I just wanted to ask about the Advocate had a ballot published in the paper, and I was wondering if that represented the real ballot that was going to be shown to us on Tuesday if we came to vote, because I thought that the questions seemed very confusing, and there was no dollar amount mentioned.
Right, there isn't.
Can you hear me okay?
Sure.
Yep.
Yes.
There isn't a ballot amount. There is not an amount attached to the ballot. That's something that's added when it's presented, I believe, to the AG's office, they put in the amount?
May I just toss in there the reason that I'm talking?
Hello?
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll answer that, okay?
All right, thank you.
Just tossing in there about why there is no dollar
Right.
amount. Let's say you have a capital exclusion. You have to spend $100,000 for a fire truck. You know the exact amount it's going to cost. But under debt exclusion, we don't know what the debt amount, what the interest rate will be. In other words, what it's going to be 3%, 4%. So we can't put a definite figure in there because we don't know until it goes out for bidding what the interest cost will be. So it's a general question, and that's by law. That's in the primer under Prop 2.5. So it's not to confuse the voters that we're not going to put in an amount just to confuse it. By law, we don't know what it's going to be.
And you cannot. Sounds like we almost got another one coming up. So.
By the way, could I just mention the
Yep.
budget cuts you're talking about? Go ahead, with the phone, Jerry.
Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you for having this program this evening. I know you've talked about question 1 and question 2 on the ballot. I was wondering if you could address question 3 for us, please, as to what implications that would have for us as citizens.
Sure, we'll gladly answer that.
Thank you.
Could I start on that?
Sure, I believe we're talking about the sidewalk.
Here we are. Again, we have to set our priorities. Certainly if you live on Franklin Street or you're going to have a student in the new school, which isn't built yet, you'd have this at the top of your list. But again, it's a capital project which we're going to have to have a figure before we can really, a solid figure before we can really vote intelligently on that.
They said 300,000.
That's what they said, Bill.
And that's a capital exclusion. So
Right.
we cannot go over that 300,000. Period.
Yeah, but how far? Go ahead.
Okay.
We have a call.
Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Question. I was just thinking about the budget for maintenance for the high school. When the economy was so good, as it was, we all know, why wasn't money being put in to maintain it? How did it all of a sudden go bad? That's the first thing I just can't figure out. And the other thing I was thinking about, when the high school did open, how many people were actually maintaining the building at that time? And what is it now? So where did it all go wrong? So if we build a new high school, 20 years from now, we're going to be in the same boat. That's what I don't know. So if you could answer that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Sure.
Can I jump in on that one, Jerry?
Start off.
Thank you. I think, number one, I think the problem with building maintenance, it should be taken away from school committee, put under the town budget. And the reason I say that, the town of Wilmington has had a separate building maintenance department up there for over 40 years. It works well. Part of the problem that you have in Reading, that prior to Proposition 2.5, the school committee used to maintain their own buildings. The town used to maintain their own buildings. By agreement between the town manager and the school department, the schools took over the maintenance of all town buildings. It comes down to the same question. Do you want books or do you want buildings? When parents sit there and they say they want the teachers in the room, something's got to give.
I believe part of his question was when the school was built, how many people were performing maintenance, and then how many are performing it today?
Well, in 1954, I can't give you an exact figure, but I can tell you right now, the gentleman that was in charge of building in 1954, you would not have the buildings in condition the way they are today. Even to the extent that when he went in on a Sunday and a teacher had taken tape and put it on brand new paint, he tore it off and told them if they wanted a bulletin board, he'd give them a bulletin board.
Yeah, but Bill, the question was how many people? I mean,
How many
I don't
people
think
was-
he was.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
How many are there today?
I have no idea.
Does anybody know how many? No.
And again, that's a case between maintenance or teachers. And it's bottom line with the school department. They can do whatever they want with the money.
Could I just toss
Sure,
in
go ahead,
something
Tom.
on budget cuts and so forth? I'd just like to point out that you're cutting a budget, which is a projected figure.
Right.
We are increasing spending every single year. We are increasing spending this year by $992,000. Next year, the levy limit will go up by over $1 million. So we are increasing spending. We're not decreasing spending. Somebody say budget cuts. Here is what we project. we cut the budget, but we're not decreasing spending.
Good evening, Citizens Forum.
I'd just like to add just a couple things that you're actually talking about at this point in time, which would be maintenance. We've done quite a few of the elementary schools. I don't know if you can hear me. You look like you're not hearing me.
No, we can hear you.
A little louder, please.
Maybe you can speak up just a little bit.
Okay. I'm on the construction side and actually been involved in estimating and actually putting bids in on these projects. What the town of Reading has done is they've actually said that they only want one control contractor, which is CV Control. What that does to a contract, it adds 30 to 40 grand per school because it doesn't open up the market. Like you say, that you've got management as far as wanting to make sure that the town takes control of their buildings or somebody else take control of their buildings. Now what you've done is you've locked one person in to the actual control and maintenance of their building, which brings up the cost unbelievably to the town. Now you've done that already in the 3 schools that you've redone. And now when you go to the high school, I can guarantee you you're going to end up doing the same thing.
I don't think we'd be able to answer any of those questions that you're putting forth.
Again.
I don't know, Jerry. I think
seems to me that's in the contractual area, and I'm not familiar with the...
Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Yes, good evening. I've watched your panel find it very interesting this evening. I got to say, though, that I really have to disagree with saying that the choice is between new buildings or raising the possibility of the override in March with 60 teachers. I think they're really entirely 2 different issues.
They are.
And I think that, as the editor of The Advocate says, that people basically are going to have to decide really where their values are. And I think that's really what the issue is. I just want to say this one thing, that Reading has a historic commitment to excellence in public education. My dad is a graduate in 1943 of the high school, and the high school at that time was an above-average institution. And I think what the people have to decide is, where is it going to go in the future? Is it going to maintain its standards, or is it going to be something else? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Want to answer that, Jane? I guess
I don't think, well, at least from my perspective, I'm not saying that people have to make a choice between an override and a new high school. I mean, it may well be that you see all of these things as high priority and necessary for your town, and that's your choice. And I would agree with the caller that it's necessary to keep a high standard of education. We've come this far. We want to at least maintain that or even strive for more. And the question is, how do we get to that point? And again, it's something that requires you to get over to the field house on Tuesday to express your opinion and to help us figure out what direction the town's going to take in the future.
If I could just toss in there something, too, that getting out the vote, yes, if you vote for these projects, if you vote to build the elementary school and you cut teachers, you're going to have to vote for an override to staff the place. So, again, matter of priorities.
Right.
We're getting close to wrap up, so let's make this the final question, and then I'll give each one of you a minute for a summary closing. How do we solve the problem?
If we knew that question, we'd be...
We wouldn't be here.
Right.
I don't think we can solve the problem entirely, Jerry. My feeling, quite frankly, and I know we're going to have some disagreement, and that's good, I like exclusions, be it for the $380,000 that we have, 80,000 rather, because it goes away. And I see it as a bridge. With all the uncertainties we have out there, we're uncertain of the landfill, we're uncertain of a lot of things.
Right.
By using that $380,000 going up for an exclusion to take that portion of the debt away and paying it, to me, it builds a bridge. And I said this 2 years ago at a financial forum, and one of the few citizens that were there from, without a direct interest in the whole thing. So that's how I feel, Jerry.
Tom, do you have a magic answer for us?
Yeah, sure. Options, override, exclusions. How about having the town employees pay more for health insurance? Some companies today, company I work for, they grandfathered everyone in, and every new employee, congratulations, good luck, go buy your own insurance. Okay, and if you want the company insurance, you have to pay for it 100%. I'm not saying we should pay 100%.
Right.
Maybe that's something at which we could look. He's for exclusions. A couple of years ago, you wanted a debt exclusion to get rid of $3.5 million in debt over a 5-year period.
Yeah.
I'd have gone along with that, okay? Override, no. I'm not in favor of the overrides because, like I said, we're increasing $1 million a year.
Before you get into this.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I think it can be fixed positively. I'm very positive on this. We've got to be able to bite the bullet and stay the course. There's always the unexpected. This winter proved that. We got a snow budget that's going to just about cripple us. We've got to say no to desires that we know we can't afford at the moment. And I think if we stay the course, it's only a matter of time. It'd take a lot of time now to bail out.
Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Yes, I was wondering, I got a question to ask you people. Do you know when the Home Depot and Jordan's Furniture is supposed to come in, and how much revenue would that bring to the town?
Just a minute, I'll put some Windex on my crystal ball here.
I can let any of the gentlemen and the lady here answer that one. I mean, that's...
Well, it was supposed to come in 2 years ago.
Yep.
Prior to that, we had a wonderful agreement, and if you look in the back, in the little Reading directory that we all look at, it tells you that Homart is still developing the landfill, and they left 10 years ago, so you tell me.
Let me grab this. Good evening, Citizens Forum.
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment. I see why that fellow who called earlier on the exercise machine sees all you people as being against these school projects. I have a relative in finance, and he always told me that if you get bogged down with asking all kinds of questions about how much a project's going to cost and what the payments will be, then your fears will just rise up on you, and you'll be so afraid of these projects, you'll never get any of these big projects done.
Okay.
That was his financial advice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll be the last phone call for the evening, and now what I'd like to do is give 1 minute to each member to give a wrap-up statement.
Amen.
Okay, I'll start off. 1 minute?
I'm going to watch my watch.
Okay, doke. To make it very briefly, in the past several years, there have been comments about what I call polarization. Well, we hear about town side, we hear about school side. This town, we're all on the same side. I don't think there's anyone in this community, in this room, anywhere in this town, who is against this or against that. We want the best for our town. We shouldn't talk about town, town school, town versus gown like they do in college towns. No. This is a community. Community means we have common goals, common ideas, and we should act as a community. We are one. We should act as one.
Thanks, Tom. Jim?
Well, the reason I started this forum, which I will continue monthly, is the fact that my neighbors, my friends, all asked me, Jim, I don't understand what they're talking about. We listen to the selectmen, we listen to the school committee, we listen to all the elected officials and government employees, but we don't hear from the public. So my idea here, and it seemed to have worked tonight, was to have citizenry input. And it's your forum. You, the public out there, this is your forum. Every month we'll have different guests, we'll have different topics. Next month I would like to invite all the unopposed candidates to come in and speak as to why they participate, why they want the office. This is the forum for the people to speak. I will run it with no bias. I will not advocate for or against anything. I just want the facts to come out. I want the public to be able to hear them, and I want the public to be able to participate. That's the name of this game. Do me one favor, participate next Tuesday. Just get out and vote.
Thanks. Jane?
Well, briefly, I guess I'd agree with Jim. Get out and vote, the most important thing you can do. And I would say also educate yourselves. Look at the school building assistance website. Just go to the Department of Education, state of Massachusetts. Go to SBA. Read up on these things, and go to town hall, go to the library, read up on some of the documents, read up on the meeting minutes, watch school building committee meetings, talk to people, and then decide what's best for you. A lot of serious choices to make in the future. I'd like to emphasize too that I think that this is not a permanent situation. Things can be fixed, but we're going to have to fix them together, and it is going to cost you some money in the end. So weigh what's important, prioritize, but get out to the field house Tuesday.
Okay. Bill?
Thanks, Jerry. I think my first vote was by absentee ballot in 1952 while I was stationed in Tripoli, Libya. And I think I've voted in every election since. And I don't care which side of the issue you're on, go out and vote number one. Because I believe I read in the paper a while ago when they first opened up in Russia, there was a gentleman who walked 100 miles to vote. And some of you people won't even get off your exercise bikes and get out and vote. So I say vote, please.
Okay.
And I'll tell you another one too. And
Do we have to listen?
Oh, no, I get a few phone calls once in a while. Go ahead.
Good.
And one gentleman called me up one day and he's complaining about the whole town. I said, well, why don't you run for town meeting? He said, well, I'm not even a citizen. Well, I mean, come on, folks.
Okay.
You have a right. Use it.
Okay.
Right.
Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I agree with your right to vote.
Okay.
Thanks, Jerry.
I'd like to thank Jim Keigley for the opportunity of being moderator for this first session.
Yeah, you got out of it
I
easy.
appreciate the phone calls, and I'm sure everybody in the panel does. And I asked before this panel if I could say this, and I'm going to say it. If you have any questions, feel free to call the members of the panel. They're all in the phone book, and they'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anytime.
And in the end, as they all say here, you need to go vote Tuesday. Thank you very much.
is asking voters to approve a $2.5 million debt exclusion override to complete the funding for a new elementary school and the renovations of Barrows Elementary School. These two projects were approved by the town of Reading in January 2000. They've been delayed due to some litigation for almost 3 years, and that has given an additional cost to the project of $2.5 million. On the slides you're about to see tonight are an overview of the different facts and circumstances around the history of these schools, the current conditions in the elementary schools today, which makes these such an important project and such an important vote, and some of the pictures of the architect's drawings to show you what the schools will look like when this is completed.
And we're asking for your support and your vote yes on question 2. Thank you very much. the Reading Elementary School project, which includes both Barrows Elementary School and the new school at Sunset Rock. The current status of this project, the voters approved back in January 2000. The school committee and the town meeting also approved. And more importantly, the School Building Assistance Bureau also approved this project. This SBA is a state funding agency which approved both projects as one solution. The financials in the School Building Assistance Bureau, the updated financials from when the voters approved it in January 2000, the difference in the price for the Sunset Rock School is another $2.5 million based on inflationary issues, which brings the total cost to the Sunset Rock School of $11.6 million. To complete and renovate Barrows Elementary School is $7.1 million, which brings the total project cost to $18.7 million, of which the state will reimburse Reading $11.3 million. Reading's share of the cost is $7.4. Reading and the School Building Assistance Bureau, the state reimbursement for the project is 66%. The rate is presently dropping for any future Reading building projects. Currently, any future Reading building projects is slated for a 58% reimbursement. The state works off a list. This elementary school project is on the list, and once the state reaches our project on the list, 1 year is given to initiate the project, or the funding is gone. The infamous School Building Assistance Priority List is captured here in a portion. As you can see, the schools are ranked from the top when they're approved to the bottom, showing the newest projects. This list currently is about 300 school projects statewide. Reading, as you can see highlighted, right now is 62 on that list, and the state starts at the top and moves its way down. Once they reach Reading, if we do not move forward on the project, the state will give us 1 year and then forfeit that reimbursement and move on to the next project. The project is easy math. 2 schools for the price of 1. If we support the $2.5 million debt exclusion override, we can fund both schools, that is Sunset Rock and Barrows, for $7.4 million with state reimbursement, or we can just renovate Barrows for $7.1 without state dollars. So we're dealing with almost the same amount of Reading dollars for either doing 2 schools or we can do 1. Clearly, you'd want to get 2 schools out of this project. Enrollment, clearly Reading has been seeing an increase from 1992 to where we are today, from 3,600, almost 3,700 to over 4,200 students presently in our schools. The K-5 population presently is at 1,986 students, with projections peaking in 2007 to 2073. And the slide you're about to see tonight will show you that we have a problem today of overcrowding in our elementary schools, and tomorrow the problem will only get worse. The snapshots of the problems, there's severe overcrowding. Here's a picture on the left of Birch Meadow. We have teacher prep room and custodial space shared. We have the music office at Barrows. We have students and teachers reading in the closets. We have Barrows, a textbook classroom, a textbook closet that was converted into a reading room with a folding chair. We have a teacher's room at Joshua Eaton. It's just overcrowded. We even have reading in the hallways. On the left, you see reading in the trash storage area at Barrows, and on the right, you see a stairwell with a makeshift classroom for students to get extra help in reading and spelling. It's clearly not a space for a student to learn. We even have physical therapy and extra help on our stages. Here is pictures of Birch Meadow School with physical therapy on its stages. We have sharing of the same speech. We have music and speech therapy sharing the room at Birch Meadow. And at Barrows, we have a music room and a school psychologist sharing the same room. Clearly, there's no commonality between the music room and the school psychologist. We have these trailers in town. We have a total of 6. The one on the left is teacher's bathroom at Barrows in the trailer, and at Birch Meadow, one of the trailers that exist there since 1992. The trailer story, as I mentioned, we have 4 trailers at Barrows, 2 at Birch Meadow. There's clear safety and security issues with these, with students going back and forth between the trailer and the school building for physical education, to go to the cafeteria. 2 of those portables at Barrows were built in '73. The average lifespan is between 10 and 15 years. Clearly, they outlived their life. They're extremely expensive to maintain, and they will need to be replaced in a short period of time, that cost being about $125,000 each. These, the state considers poor Band-Aids, and they will no longer support. We also have core facilities that are overburdened with children, physical education classes being taught in the cafeteria. We have lunches being served from the early morning to close to 2 o'clock just to accommodate all the students. We even have library space that's cut in half from the overcrowding. And we also have boiler replacements and other issues at Barrows that need to be addressed. What is the plan and the solution? The solution includes 2 projects. The Sunset Rock School, which will include 17 new classrooms, 15 regular classrooms, 2 kindergartners that will accommodate 436 students. And we have the renovation and addition at Barrows of 6 new classrooms that will include 144 new students. The state has said, once again, no more Band-Aids, and they consider both these projects to be a solution to the K-5 population. The plan with the current 4 schools, we are currently over capacity by state standards by 228 students. We will be over capacity by 375 in the year 2007. This current plan can accommodate 580 students. A lot of questions have been asked, how are we going to staff a new elementary school at Sunset Rock when we're facing operational cutbacks? The answer is that we'll be shifting staff from the existing 4 schools. We'll be taking teachers out of the hallways, we'll be taking teachers out of the closets, we will be taking teachers out of the portables and moving them into real classrooms. Additionally, these operational budgets have short business cycles, whereas the capital projects last for 50 years. We've seen the same cutbacks in the early 90s. We have ridden those out. We will ride out these times as well. Once the operational budget rebounds, our school projects will be ready. What can we do? $2.5 million we could raise through a debt exclusion override. Reading's cost is about $1.93 million, of which for the average homeowner, the cost is $26 per year. If we approve this debt exclusion, Sunset Rock will be open in September '04. What are state dollars doing in other towns? We have some pictures here of the Stoneham Elementary School being not only on the priority list, but moving forward. The most poignant picture is this school in Melrose, the Roosevelt Elementary School. This school is already built, brand new facility. It is number 79 on the school building assistance funding list, below Reading. Reading Sunset Rock School's at number 62. We're ahead of them in reimbursement, but drastically behind them in getting our projects forward. Other factors to consider, these projections don't take into consideration the development of Spence Farm, Longwood Poultry Farm. Clearly, it's not clear what type of development will ultimately be proposed or implemented for those parcels of land. That could equate to hundreds of new housing units. We could get an instant influx of new students. In addition, these population projections that you saw for kindergarten through 5th grade are based on keeping the births at 300 per year, but we have seen years in the late 90s where that has increased to 350 new live births per year. and that is an additional 2 classrooms, and we no longer can support any additional classroom space. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed that we'll stay at 300. The conclusion, basically this project has been approved by the state. We're on the funding list. We're number 62. There's $11.3 million at stake. We need the space for today's enrollment. Tomorrow we will need it more. We do not want any more Band-Aids, and we want to say goodbye to the trailers. Reading clearly takes its quality of education seriously. We have an outstanding school system. We need to maintain that stellar school system, and we're asking you to vote yes on question 2 on February 25th. Help the children, keep your property value up, get out to the polls February 25th, and vote yes. If you have any questions, please visit www.readingpep.org. Thank you very much for watching those slides. We, again, are requesting you to support question 2 on February 25th. We hope those slides answered any questions that you may have relating to the elementary school program. If you have any further questions, please visit our website at www.readingpep.org. That's Reading, P-E-P.org. And we look forward to your support on February 25th. Yes, on question 2.
Look what we're throwing away. The Reading Memorial High School proposal before us for a vote on February 25th is not a proposal to renovate Reading Memorial High School. It is a proposal to demolish Reading Memorial High School, to destroy it, to tear it down and throw it away. We are not talking about one wing either. We are talking about the complete school built in the 1950s. The south wing with its auditorium, cafeteria, and 3 floors of classrooms. The center wing with its offices, gymnasium, and more classrooms. The north wing, which houses industrial arts and fine arts. We are being asked to tear down and throw away the heart and soul of Reading Memorial High School. We must say no. Let's look at Reading Memorial High School and see what we will lose. If we enter the school via the south or community entrance, we come directly to the auditorium, a school and community facility. Within the last month or two, the auditorium has been the site of several performances of Hello Dolly by the Reading High School Drama Club, the annual Christmas concert by the music department, the Mass Highway interchange meetings, and a special town meeting. Although easily accessible to the public, the auditorium is also easily reached by students. It is only 1 flight of stairs and a 3 or 4 minute walk away from even the most distant classroom. The auditorium seats 1,100 people, 900 on the main floor, and 200 in the balcony. The auditorium is used regularly during the school day and after school for band practice and by the drama club. The auditorium in the proposed new high school will seat only 800 or so. Directly behind the auditorium stage is the band room, which is the size of 2 classrooms. It is used for practice and storage. Now on to the cafeteria. Like the auditorium, the cafeteria is in the community wing of the building, easily accessible to all students. Through the years, the cafeteria has been the site of countless sports banquets, scout events, class meetings, dances, science fairs, and other student and community activities. It has even been used for blood bank collections. The cafeteria is often used in conjunction with the adjacent auditorium or the commons, an extension of the cafeteria that was added in 1970. Note the sets of doors on the far wall. These doors open to the kitchen serving area. During lunch, students have easy access to the serving lines. Once lunch is over, the doors are closed and the cafeteria is instantly converted to a large multi-purpose room. Tables can be removed or rearranged to create spaces suitable for a variety of uses. This design feature is typical of Reading Memorial High School, which contains many such amenities not usually found in public buildings and newer schools. Behind the serving doors, we can see the kitchen itself. Here we also see some of the valuable equipment that will be discarded if we tear down this school. Some students may have their lunch in the commons area. The commons and cafeteria together seat about 600 students, requiring only 2 lunch periods to accommodate the student body. On the other hand, the cafeteria in the proposed new building will seat far fewer students and will require 3 or more lunch periods. The doorway in the upper left leads to the cafeteria. The gray rectangle in the center wall opens to a serving area, and the door at the right leads to the faculty dining area, which has its own service window. In the proposed new high school building, teachers will have to fill their trays in the cafeteria and carry them through a lobby crowded with students assembling for lunch. The teacher lunchroom would be located on the far side of the lobby. The Reading Memorial High School Guidance Suite, located in the center wing near the main entrance, contains a comfortable area where students can read, study available materials, and access computers. The Guidance Suite also includes a large conference room. Guidance counselors have individual offices where private meetings can be held with students, parents, and teachers. The guidance area in the proposed new school will be much smaller than the existing Guidance Suite. Also in the center wing is the gymnasium. The gym, which has come to be known as the girls' gym, served all Reading Memorial High School students for both physical education and athletics from the school's opening in 1954 until the field house was built. Today, the gym would easily accommodate the entire physical education program for both boys and girls. The locker section on the floor below the gym needs refurbishing, but could easily be transformed into girls' and boys' locker rooms. This would eliminate any Title IX problems, real or imagined. There is no gym in the proposed new high school, only a connecting glass link to the field house. The lecture hall was not part of Reading Memorial High School in 1954. It is located in the link between the main building and the math science wing of the 1970s edition. With a capacity of 300, the lecture hall plays many community and academic roles. The school committee occasionally meets in the lecture hall. Students are inducted into the National Honor Society, and candidates for local office present their views to the public there. During the school day, 2 or more classes may meet jointly. Sometimes faculty meetings are held there, and the chorus uses it for practice. If we approve the ballot question before us, we will lose the lecture hall. The proposed new school contains no comparable space. The Library Media Center is also located in the link between the original school and the Math Science Wing. It is located on the main floor above the lecture hall. Built to service 2,000 students, the library has ample room for today's 1,200-plus students, along with today's technology. This superior facility is part of what we will destroy and discard with this proposal. Here we see another Reading Memorial High School amenity, rarely found in a public high school: the academic department offices. These are not little cubby holes with room only for the department head. They are the size of a large classroom and contain a full-size office desk and ample file drawers for each teacher in the department. The department office serves as a home away from the classroom. Offices are complete with a refreshment area and lavatory facilities. Teachers gather in these offices before and after school and during preparation periods. These surroundings are far more comfortable than a teacher's desk at the front of an empty classroom. Department offices will disappear if we choose to demolish our high school. The proposed new school has 19 fewer classrooms than Reading Memorial High School. Some teachers required to teach in a number of different classrooms will not even have a workspace and storage area to call their own. The classrooms of Reading Memorial High School are just like millions of classrooms in use in public and private schools throughout the country. Most of these rooms need standard updating. We do not need to tear down classroom walls to make some rooms smaller and some larger. All 3 Flansburgh renovation options involve the totally unnecessary reconfiguration of classrooms. The Reading Memorial High School corridors have been criticized for being too wide and a waste of space. This is nonsense. The corridors may be wider than those required by today's less demanding construction standards, but our corridors are more aesthetically pleasing than narrow corridors, and they are safer for our young people because they allow more room for passing, decreasing the potential for pushing, shoving, and jostling in too close quarters. We have 96 classrooms in Reading Memorial High School. The proposed school contains only 75 classrooms. There it stands at age 50, Reading Memorial High School, our solid, majestic landmark, our tribute to Reading citizens who gave their lives in World War II and the Korean War, so that we might continue to have the kind of discourse we are having today. Reading Memorial High School was a beautiful school when it opened in 1954. It was still a beautiful school 25 years later, when enrollment reached a peak of 1,800 students. And Reading Memorial High School would be a beautiful school today if we had taken care of it properly. But we did not. We neglected our school. It was not a matter of money, as some would have us believe. Our officials poured millions of dollars into Parker and Coolidge middle schools while ignoring the high school, even though the high school had a greater need. Now these same officials want to demolish Reading Memorial High School. Throw away everything you have seen in this presentation and replace it with a building that is smaller than what we have and extremely unattractive. We must say no, loudly and clearly. Then we must set about restoring our stately, unique high school to its original condition. Please join me in voting no to question 1 on February 25th. Thank you.
Public that follow the budget process. January 3rd, superintendent distributes prioritized list of potential reductions. January 4th, school committee meeting with central will hold meeting with the central administration on the FY02 budget for regular day administration. January 8th, school committee will hold meeting with the central administration on the O2 budget for special ed, athletics, extracurricular. January 9th, school committee will hold meeting with the central administration on the fiscal O2 budget for maintenance and food services. January and 10th, questions and comments. January 16th, we'll hold a meeting to discuss recommended reductions for non-override budget. January 18th, school committee will hold a public hearing on the fiscal O2 budget, and if necessary, continue discussion on recommended reductions for non-override budget. And then on a certain date to be announced is of this memo, the fiscal O2 budget will be sent to the town manager. This is all in addition to meetings held with the FinCom when they reviewed the budget in what has been referred to as the financial forum, when we have a meeting of all the major boards, and those budgetary numbers and general outlines were discussed in several of those forums. The point being, and I really didn't want to take up your time, is that the budget process is a very lengthy and a very open process. Questions are always asked, questions are always answered. We have developed this process because it is a complex budget, and because we do want input, and because we need to get to a point where we are now that we have a package that's not only deliverable to town meeting, to the members here, but it's a document that can be implemented in the next fiscal year. And basically that's it. Thank you very much.
Dr. Hartonian.
I'd just like to remind town meeting that the town manager indicated that there were 43 meetings between the selectmen, the school committee, and the finance committee on this budget.
Further discussion. Ms. O'Neill.
Mary Ellen O'Neill, Precinct 6. I am a supporter of the school department. I was a supporter of the override. I suspect I will also support any efforts to improve the high school. I do feel this is a place for town meeting members to the last place and the bottom line on the school budget. It's a big budget. I'm glad we answered the questions. People have to feel free to come here and ask the questions, get a reasonable answer if the material is available. And as I raised questions on the budget last year, I don't appreciate getting a lecture about not asking questions. That's what we're here for. It's a learning process. It takes a little time. And if we can all be reasonable, those of us who aren't big fans of the school department, those of us who are, can all learn. Thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? On the left.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Carpenter, Precinct 7, not a member of the school committee, and my hat's off to those who are. The past half dozen speakers have raised some interesting issues. One of the first speakers in this item raised the issue of democracy and openness. Yes, town meeting is one of the best examples of democracy you'll ever find. Part of the requirements of citizenship, participating citizenship, is for those citizens to be informed and do their homework. Mr. Dahl went through the process of all the meetings that have been held this year. It has been a painstakingly public process. I've participated in that process. I've participated in that process the last 10 years. I can tell you that none of the questions that were asked tonight were not questions that have been asked, sometimes by those same people, at some of those open meetings. There was an implication in some of those questions of a lack of confidence in the management and direction of our school department. And there was a reference to a downward trend in confidence. I've studied and participated for a while, and again now as a volunteer, in public schools since about 1969. And I can assure you that the lowest point of public confidence in the public schools nationwide was toward the end of the 1970s. And since then, public confidence has actually risen, as have SAT scores. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the last, 7-8 years has been involved in an exercise called education reform. Part of education reform is to renew the confidence of people who may have lost some confidence by showing how what you do in the classroom does have a measurable effect. And that's all this hand-wringing about the MCAT scores. We are on a path toward rebuilding confidence in public education. We're doing specific things statewide, locally, and nationwide. And it's not correct to say this is a low point. We're on the upswing. Within our own town, you can see the upswing because people moved to Reading, as was said by, I think, 2 speakers, because of their confidence in the public schools in this town. Your house is probably worth $100,000 to $200,000 more than it would be if people did not have confidence in the schools in this town. They move here to get their kids into these schools. We do, people are voting with their feet in favor of the schools of Reading. It's important to be part of the process. It's important to be part of the process early. Next August, next September, go to the early meetings. I think I've said what I came to say. Thank you.
Further discussion? Anyone that hasn't spoken before? Okay, Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ray Porter, Precinct 6. Again, I wasn't suggesting, and I'm not sure it had real value for me to hear separate questions without going over the whole budget. And I'd like to repeat that I'm not second-guessing or suggesting that town meetings should second-guess the commitment by the school committee and the number of meetings that are held and the public forum that they're held in. But what I'm suggesting here tonight is the bottom line, and the bottom line is town meeting's responsibility to approve. And again, I don't know, maybe more folks here than not understand the full details and have attended most of your meetings to understand how you've evolved with the budget. But if some folks have questions, or in order to have a forum where people can walk through these pages, much like we did on the town side, to understand where you've been, in my opinion, I think that there's real value to that. And if it generates discussion amongst people in town meeting that are trusted with the approval of the bottom line, then I think it's time well worth spent. I had actually a couple questions I wanted to ask about professional development, And I happen to believe that professional development is very important in every facet of our society. And one of the questions I had for Dr. Haratunian is, with the professional development, how are those programs evaluated? Do you actually measure in terms of student achievement, or is there increased effectiveness by teachers? When you look at the professional development in the budget, altogether with tuition reimbursement, it's about $420,000, and I think that's significant enough to talk about for a minute. On a later page in the budget, it breaks that down for curriculum initiatives, and it's about 107 for elementary and 7,000 for middle and 6 for high school. So a certain percent of that number is going toward curriculum initiatives, but most of it isn't. Could you tell us just a little bit about what types of education we're reimbursing, teachers for, and how that equates to more effectiveness as a teacher?
Your first question is relevant to the programs themselves. The training of our teaching staff is only one aspect of the overall improvement to instruction for the delivery to the students. We have never equated professional development directly to test scores. Since it's only a small portion, and again, if there was in this district a correlation between test scores and teacher salary or something like that, then some of our most needy children would not be taken by teachers, because there would be a great deal of pressure on them to score high. Our programs are evaluated on their completion, on their delivery. We do follow-up sessions. They're directly correlated to the people's recertification. But a direct evaluation of the program and its correlation to improving test scores, I can only tell you our scores continue to go up.
I mean, is there some way to measure that? The feedback from the individual?
The human child is such a variable. With the special needs of children, the ability level of children, we try to make fits that work. And since each year the variable is that the children are mixed up in the following year, we only have several teachers that do looping, which is to take one grade of kids and follow them for 2 years. Those are the only classrooms that we could do measurement, because the teacher's consistent and the students are consistent. But we don't do pre and post testing of the students.
Well, that might be one way to measure, but what I was driving at is, with the teachers that actually are in these, professional development programs, or if it's a college reimbursement, what's their feedback in terms of the value for them as a teacher? And I also was interested in, with the professional development that you've got appropriated for 2002, how much of that money is in professional development for teachers in inclusion programs for children?
The professional development money has been greatly cut back in the special ed department, and that's the primary place that we do inclusion for regular and special ed teachers.
I was talking with someone at the State Department of Education this week, and there are grant programs, and money is available for professional development in inclusion programs, and that might be something that you could look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Dr. Haratunian.
I'd just like to take a couple minutes to address town meeting. In 1995, town meeting had a special town meeting because the school department had a $250,000 unanticipated shortfall in its special ed budget. That was 4 weeks before I was elected superintendent. In the fall of 95, I not only had to reconcile, because of the wishes of the finance committee, the FY 95 budget, which is the year before I came here. I had to reconcile the FY 96 budget, which was the budget we were in, and by January I had to submit an FY 97 budget. Since that day, there has never been a budget presented to any group, anywhere, anytime, that had numbers that didn't add up, that couldn't be justified. In 1996, the campus at Reading High School was an open campus, and students at the high school were taking 4 or less courses. We closed the campus at Reading High School. Students are now taking 6 subjects. That means more teachers. That means more dollars. Last year's graduating class of less than 250 students, number 1, 2, 3, and 4 went to Harvard University. I don't think there's another public high school in Massachusetts, let alone the country, that could hold up those accomplishments. The town has supported the building projects with great scrutiny, and we appreciate the scrutiny. But over the past few years, there have been personal attacks to me. There have been personal attacks to this school committee. My integrity has been questioned. My children have been attacked. My family have been attacked. I've been investigated by the Ethics Commission 3 times. I have had more calls to the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Wasted money has been put forth through lawsuits. I believe it is time for this community to stand up and to make a decision on moving education forward and using the $810 below the state average, which will increase to over $1,000 next year, and to move this school system forward. We spend a great deal of time harping on the negative. The same questions that were asked here today, as Mr. Carpenter indicated, have been asked in many other forums. I will spend as much time as town meeting or anyone else would like me to answer any questions. I live, I eat, and I breathe this. We are the largest school system in Massachusetts without a business manager. These are why some of these accounting issues, such as REAP and things like that, happen. But that's a decision this town made 8-10 years ago. We support that decision. We will continue to make mistakes. There are people in this audience, in this community, that will do everything they possibly can to embellish those to the greatest amount to discredit the Reading School Committee and its administration. I still stand here before you proud to be the superintendent, proud of the accomplishments of the community, proud of the accomplishments of the teaching staff. There is very little wasteful dollars in this budget. My colleagues don't understand how such little money can turn out 20th MCAS scores in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Further discussion? Town meeting will come to order. Is there further discussion? None appearing, we will move on to section N. Ms. Grimm.
Move that the town approve and appropriate the proposed fiscal 2002 budget as presented for line items N1 through N4, Water Fund, $2,697,477, to be provided as follows. Line N4, $250,000 from water reserves. Line N1 through N3, and the remainder of N4, property taxes, state aid, and non-property tax local receipts.
Is there a second? Second, Mr. Heckenluckner.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The water budget shows an increase of 6.06%. There are no